I want it to be like, "Pew, pew, pew, pew." All right. Hey, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Healing Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Shonda Domingo Brown. I'm an ancestral medium and movement healer. And this podcast is going to be your go-to space for tips, tools, and resources to support you on your healing journey. Whether you're navigating motherhood, entrepreneurship, relationships, or everyday life, this is your space where you can see that you're not alone and where you can actually take away some go-to things to implement in your own life as you're healing and navigating it all at the same time. So I am super excited. That's why as soon as you press play, you probably hear me go, "Ew, ew, 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 bow, 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 bow." I am super excited because I have my long-term friend, my sister, Nina Thomas, who is just amazing to me. She's the friend you call when you like, I can't do it. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. She is that friend. She's definitely one of those friends for me. She is that friend that reminds you of how great you are. She is that friend that will speak life into you, that will remind you of what you said you was gonna do, with what you agreed with spirit that you was gonna do, and that will give you that confirmation all at the same time. She has had many successful businesses. She currently has a awesome truck driving dispatching business where she is teaching people how to do it as well as doing it herself, really helping people. She is like service embodied when it comes to really helping people execute their dreams, achieve their goals, and hold them accountable all at the same time. So I'm super excited to have her here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yo, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I asked Nina here for this episode, y'all. The intention is all about setting intentions as we look into 2025, but also on top of that, how we're like betting on ourselves. So this gonna kind of sound like a phone conversation that me and Nina be having. That's what this episode about to sound like. I'm just warning y'all right now. This how we be sounding on the phone. Okay. And that's what made me ask Nina to really come in and do this episode with us, because I was like, yo, okay, 2025, what we doing? She was like, we betting on ourselves. It's non-negotiable. This is how we moving. And I was like, yeah, I want to set some intentions.
Mhm.
And then she started sharing with me all of these exercises that she was doing to really bet on herself, to hold herself accountable, and how she did it for 2024 and how it has like shown up and manifested, and how she has seen like God and spirit move in her life. So I was like, well, you got to share it with the people, Nina. We got to get on here and we got to share it with the people. So I want you to first just, you can add on, of course, introducing yourself and anything else you want to add on from there. And then from that, I really want you to start with just telling us like what drives you to bet on yourself. So I feel like when I think about somebody who bets on themselves and be like, I'm going to do it anyway, like I always think of you.
Mhm. I appreciate that because, that's why you have like good sister circles, friend circles. Like you have that because, and oftentimes when we're talking to each other, you see things in me and I see things in you. And it's just like, you see that? Like, it has that feeling of, I have to think more about myself because you see different things that I didn't think I could tap into. And it's the same way, vice versa. Like I could see things in you and you're just like, I didn't know I had like this skill or I was even giving off these things. So, for us, I just think that we have kids, we have little ones and they didn't ask to be here. So it's like, it's our responsibility as moms, wives, and entrepreneurs. We're just like, we got to set the tone. Like we want to make sure that we put things in place to take care of them. So that's going to always be like my drive is my kids, my families. And then you want to make sure that if I'm pushing forward to do it, I want to have friends that's going to do it too. Like I don't want to eat at the table by myself. I want us to eat together. So that's always going to be my drive is my friends, my family, my kids. That's going to always be our motivation.
Yes, I always think we always foreshadow. We like, yeah, because one day we gonna be on a resort and we gonna be chilling and we gonna be like, remember when?
Yeah.
When we used to be stressed out and we didn't know when this day was gonna come. So no, I agree. I always say like my boys are the catalyst for my healing. Like they are like the beginning of my healing journey. They are the beginning of my story, you know, with my evolution and what that looks like. I'm
Yeah.
like, if it wasn't for them, I don't know if I would have been motivated enough to actually like sit with my ish and address my wounds and really look at myself as far as like what I need to change. I probably just would have still been out here like people pleasing and sitting in denial. You know, but they are the reason that I'm like, I can catch something. Your kids will tell you. Your kids will tell you what needs healing and where you have some room for growth.
And look,
Okay.
your your kids make you realize that, you know, I'm not a good employee. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't go to somebody's job and let me just say this is just for entrepreneur cats. You know, like I know if I went back to a job, I would be like a terrible employee because I want to spend time with my kids. Like, you know, I want to spend time with my family. So it's a non-negotiable for you to tell me that I'm punching my own clock. But you're gonna be ready to fire me because I'm gonna take my kids over anything. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we have to
Exactly. And they are, I feel like the same way though. They are, but I feel like what gives me that edge is when I have friends like you, or I even listen to podcasts that's similar like this, and I can just hear that there are other women or just other people out there that's like, I'm scared and I'm gonna do it anyway. That's gonna be the difference between me and the version of me that doesn't, you know, not even competing with anybody else. That's the difference between me and the me yesterday. Like the me today is gonna do it scared. She gonna do it without knowing what the result is. She's gonna do it just knowing that that's her purpose, right? And a lot of things that's been coming up for me is like feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel the fear, sit with the fear, tell the fear, hey girl, give the fear some popcorn, and then go like do it anyway. And so what does fear look like for you? Like for me, fear sometimes is like convincing myself that I don't need to do it, that I'm not ready yet, that I need to go get another certification because I like being a student. So I'll talk myself into needing about 4 certifications before I go tell myself that I'm legit and worthy enough to go do a thing. Right? Instead of being like, no, yes, and like, yes, you can go get the certification and you have enough to move forward.
it's a so looking at this question, I had to go back and like really sit into like what is fear because I guess naturally this whole year I have taken that opportunity to really bet on myself that I feel like fear don't even exist. You know, I think I related fear to just being that fear is unfamiliar. You know, and I had to Google. I was like, what is the definition of fear? And fear says that it's a emotion of a belief of being scared of something or someone. And I was like, well, I don't have fear. It's an uncertainty of feeling like, what if I fail? We instantly relate fear into a negative space instead of turning it into a positive. Like, well, what if this actually works? What if it, you know, makes money? What if this actually changes my whole life? Instead of thinking about fears like, oh, it's just not going to work out. I don't know if I have the tools. I don't know if I'm equipped. It's the emotion. So it's like, okay, it's just unfamiliar for us because we know when we went to school, that was first grade, second grade, third grade, like we knew what to expect, you know? So going into like a new opportunity, a new space, is like it's always that worrisome of like, is this going to really work? Instead of kind of going into it with the mindset of like, no, it's going to work. It has no choice but to work because that's what my mind is, you know? So I think for me, it's like fear is really just turning it out of what does fear actually mean? And I think it's just kind of like turning that mindset of like, I'm only scared because I think in my mind this won't work. But what if it does? You know, and it's what is counterproductive or counteracting that whole space of like, no, let's speak life into it instead of thinking about what won't happen or if this is going to do anything to me, you know?
And I like that you said speak life into it because that brought me kind of to my next question of like, how do you put your action into yourself, right? When you feel that fear. So when you're saying speak life into it, what are some of the things that you do? You know, I got the number one thing that you told me. I'm like, what? So Can you share, like, what are like your top 3 things that you do to transition from fear into action? Like, what is your yes and what is your feel the fear and do it anyway?
Sometimes I feel like I have to come into a space of like sitting in that emotion of, okay, what, why am I feeling this way? Now let's write down all the positive of what works from this. Other things I do of like, I've been in this journey of reading the Bible and hearing all these stories. So of course it fuels me with all of these stories have come out with positive outcomes. So why don't I just take that and think about life in that way? Like we're gonna have a positive outcome of this. And then, our girl, our sister girl, I'm gonna just call out Sarah Jakes Roberts. She speak life into us all day long. Okay, so she had this sermon, and this sermon says she always was saying that I believe what God believes about you, and she was just like, if you don't believe, that means you don't trust God's plan. And when she said that, I felt like that really changed my whole outlook on life because if I doubt myself, then I'm doubting God's plans for me. So I felt like in my mind, I was just like, I have to think that, like, if God gave me these visions and these dreams and these whole like plan, it has to work, right? So I feel like that has been my main thing of changing how I looked at life the second half of the year of like, no, if I don't believe in myself, then that means I don't believe in God's plan. So like that has really changed how I look at everything that I want to pursue. So now I just feel like I'm really unstoppable. Which is probably like a bad thing because I'm sitting here like, nah, I'm gonna kill everything.
I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's how we get into that's how we get into self-love. That's how we get into knowing our worth. That's how we get into knowing that we're
The
deserving.
healing journey, that's
Yeah.
everything.
I think it's
Yes,
just we're not
absolutely.
bred to feel so confident about ourselves. We get told that confidence isn't a good thing, that confidence is arrogance, and it's two different things, because arrogance is really another coping
It's
mechanism.
two
That
different
ain't
things.
confidence, you know. But like
Yeah,
pure confidence of like,
yeah,
I was born to do
yeah.
this, I was built to do this, I'm not gonna lose. Even if it looks like a
Hmm.
loss to you, it's still a win to me because I know that everything's working out for my highest
Yeah,
good. It's a part of a bigger plan. So we
yeah.
good.
It's a lesson. It's a
Yes.
lesson of it's a whole lesson of like, okay, so how do we take the next chapter of our life and do it better? Because if we really think about our whole life journey, it's kind of like how we say about looking at our people and just like they 50 and 60 years old and they look amazing. It's kind of like the same journey when we look at life, like we get better over time. It's like we don't go backwards. We keep moving forward, but we get better and better in how we handle decisions, conversations, friendships, and it's like you have to look at it that way. So if I can have better friendships, better relationships, sit at the table and talk to these people, then I'm going to be better at business. I'm going to be better at money. I'm going to be better at finances. It's looking at all of those things. It's like, no, my word of the year should be better. My thought process should be better, believing bigger. It should just speaking life into those situations because we know we're not going to sit in forever. Get better.
I love that. And
So
I'm
how you
like,
want to
let's go. Let's go.
preach?
I told you. That's how we be on the phone. I'd be like, well, preach then. Give me a word then, Nina. Let's go, sis. Give me a word. We be
That's
on the
how we
phone
be.
like, and
Because it's like,
another thing.
I, and yes, we be like, we going to get off the phone like 19 times.
Any
And we like,
word.
look, sis, we go back and forth. Let me write this down. Let me hold
Okay,
myself
okay,
accountable
okay.
today.
So as we look at really sharing with people like how you and I were talking about, okay, 2025 is upon us. We don't want to be like the cliche, I got my vision board, don't get me wrong. Got up in Canva and did my thug thizzle. And I did like a self-love altar, which I wrote like a blog post about. So it's like I just took a space, I used my dresser and I made an
Hmm.
altar where I have this picture that a friend of mine gave me that I feel like is just like me in another timeline. I'm like, yes, that is me. Thank you. It's like this woman like in a
Yeah,
tub with like
yeah.
plants everywhere and a full moon, and I'm like, yeah, that's about right.
Ooh,
That's about right. So I put that as like the center,
That's
and then I
me.
have like some of my favorite crystals, my favorite perfume, my favorite jewelry, the things that I use to take care of myself. So I'm using it as a way to keep myself accountable to not just do self-care, but really do
Yeah.
self-love. Like for me, really caring for myself
Yeah.
has been a way that I have been neglecting myself in the past. So I set up this altar to really hold me accountable for showing up for myself, for being like, okay, sis, the perfume is looking dusty. What are we doing? You know, like did we take our tincture today? What are we? It's looking a little. Have we wiped it down? Does it have fresh water? Does it have fresh flowers? So that way, if I look back at it and I'm like, ooh, them flowers dying, I haven't replaced them or I haven't done something like that. It's my way of holding me accountable to really nourish myself in 2025, which is one of
I'm about to say that. That's the word. It's nourishing. It's nourishing because if you love on that, then you loving on yourself because that's the things that you really appreciate.
Can you share with everyone the 300 exercise that you share with me?
Oh yes. Okay. So this year, 2024, I kept seeing this, and of course, when you see things, you start to feel like, okay, I definitely should tap into this. So the 300 things was something I saw from Steve Harvey. He said to take some paper, whether you write it or you type it, write down 300 things that you want from God. He was like, pray over this every day and watch how God blows your mind. So really, it's kind of a test of manifesting the life that you want to live. Pretty much the power of your words, and it's really just kind of making you believe bigger or having that crazy faith, right? So I did it in January of this year, and actually sat down and opened it in December because, hey, as humans, we get lazy. So I think I started off super strong, like praying over this every day, and I was just like, oh man, I don't know. So in December, I was like, let me open this up and see like everything that has happened. And women, China, when I tell you, like, I was like really wild. I was really wild about all these things that happened, all these things that occurred that I had literally forgot about. And I was just like, God, you funny because we can say things and it's like we forget it. We just kind of dump it on the side. So it's really about manifesting the life that you want to live. Just kind of just really expanding your imagination to have crazy faith, right? So I told it to you, and this is our challenge for 2025 to really tap into this year. And I'm just excited to see what's going to happen for 2025. But I don't know if you want me to say a couple things that actually happened this year in my
Yes, please.
Okay, so one thing I wrote on there was I wanted to start my insurance brokerage because I just thought that was a huge opportunity with transportation, dealing with truck drivers, was to help them pivot to insurance. So I actually opened up the insurance brokerage in March. So I was just like, that is so crazy. One of the things that I wrote on there was that I wanted to challenge myself to lose 50 to 80 pounds. As of today, I'm at 40 that I've dropped since starting in June. So I was just like, you would just be amazed at how you can really challenge your mind. But it's also just, I don't want to say speak life into it because you are doing it, but it's just really challenging you to think of the impossible, you know? And it's just like, that is just so crazy when you root yourself in your faith of what can happen. So I think everybody should try it at least once. It is hard because you're thinking of 300 things, right? You're just like, I'm going to do this. You get to about 50 to 70, you're just like, okay, God, I don't know what else to write on here. You start praying for your friends.
That might be the point of it, though. That you start covering other people too.
Yes.
And not just always thinking about yourself. It
So
puts you in a space where you get to think about others. And, you know, I always believe in, you know, two or more touch and agree and have the same vision. You can make that thing manifest even quicker. So I support it.
Yes.
But if
100%.
300 feels overwhelming, y'all,
Mm-hmm.
like go for 50 and be, or go for 20 and be like, sis, this is where I'm at today. Go for
Mm-hmm.
3 and be like, this is where I'm at, you know?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that Nina and I are doing is we just basically writing all of ours in a Google Doc and we just sharing it with each other. So it's kind of like a way where you can also
Mm-hmm.
share your wins, share your wins with your friend. Be like, girl, look at this.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening. And also be in a space of like when something
Mm-hmm.
happens on her list, I
Mm-hmm.
could be like, whoo, I'm up next. Here we go. Like it's like it's possible.
Yeah, right. Your blessing is in the
Exactly. Like
neighborhood.
who be like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh,
Your
things
blessing
are
is in the
happening for
neighborhood.
us. It's a shifting. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it's also a
Hmm.
challenge though, because like we can say, start off at 50 and 70, but it's just like if you want to put yourself on breaking it down into like 100, you can take a minute to write down certain things and then push yourself like, what, let me add a little bit more. And let me add a little bit more. This is how you start to wow yourself on just saying, all right, God, I did it. Like I managed to do the whole thing. Because let's be honest, if we try to do 300 things in one sitting, you're not going to finish it. But if you take the time to space it out and do a few at a time, few a day, a few like in the morning, I'm gonna do a 50 more in the evening, then you realize, okay, well, I'm gonna get through that 300 because I actually kind of came up with a strategy and a plan to get it done. And I think that's why we tend to quit on things because we just feel like it's overwhelming doing it all at one time instead of just like, let's just reverse engineer this. Okay. And break it down into little chunks.
And I know that's one of the
So,
things that, like personally, that you help me with so much when we talk is because I'm always like, and then I want to do this thing, and then this thing sounds good, and I think I'm going to go over here and kind of do this too, and then I'd be like, but I don't know, I think I'm gonna just stay right here, and you'd be like, or let's reverse engineer that thing, right?
or we break it
Or we
down.
can break it down. And one of the things that I know I'm setting for myself in 2025 that I realized, and I hope this helps someone too, is consistency. Like, I feel like that's one of the things where I personally know that I fell short. Um, and when that connected to me just not having that belief that it's gonna work, but and also if I'm keeping it 100, just wanting it to blow up overnight, and not realizing like no, staying consistent is a part of the journey. Staying consistent is a part of the process. And when I say consistent, y'all, I mean consistent on every front. Consistent with my skincare routine, consistent with my spiritual hygiene, consistent with posting my brand or my business, consistent with sharing with people what I do. Like really, really, I'm just getting to the point now that we're at the end of the year of being like, no, Shonda, consistency. And I always I
Yeah.
appreciate having, friends like Nina, and she's like, no, just do it again. And I'd be like, but it didn't. And she'd be like, do it again, post it
Mm-hmm.
again, like do it again. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized for
Mm-hmm.
me,
Because
when it
here's the
comes to
thing.
doing that again, it triggers that wound of people pleasing, of looking outside of myself for validation. And so if it helps with anyone who's been kind of struggling with consistency, whether it's your self-loving discipline, right, of your skincare routine, or if you're an entrepreneur and it's not just making a post, but just marketing your business in whatever way, look what that needs to look like for you, right? But knowing that if you know what you're doing is a part of your purpose, it's a part of your calling, it's something that makes you feel alive, and it's something that makes you happy, then that's the driving factor. Not the likes, not the comments, not the shares, not the saves. That is what I have decided to lean on to foster my consistency.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, when we look at consistency, I think we need to match consistency with being intentional. And intentional was my word for 2024. And I felt like being intentional made me focus on being consistent because I wanted to make sure I had a goal for me. It's like we think so much of what everyone else thinks of us when it's just like, forget the people. Don't worry about it. Like, what is your goal? What is your purpose? What is your plan? And when you start operating on those things, then you easy to be intentional, then it's to be consistent because you're cutting all the noise of everything else and focusing on if I want to be a content creator, if I want to teach a class, if I want to do these things, you still have to focus on being intentional.
Exactly. It's like what she said. Exactly. So I know for me, like my intention is consistency, and that's in every area of my life. So not just consistency in my business. I want it to be consistency in every area of my life, consistency in how I show up for myself, consistency in how I trust myself, trusting my intuition, trusting my dreams, trusting what I heard, God or my ancestors tell me, like consistency in every shape and form, consistency in how I eat, consistency in how I move my body, consistency in how I show up for my friends, consistency in how I honor how I feel. So consistency that, like, if I need a nap on Tuesday and I can't make it to the party, I'm not catching a panic attack because I think you're not gonna want to be my friend no more. I'm gonna be consistent, right? And like taking my truth and going to take my nap. Like really being consistent in every shape or the form, and trusting that that's going to get me to that next level. That's like my intention, and that's how I'm choosing to like bet on myself for 2025. So what does that look like for you? And I want you to share, because you be having the tips and the tools and the strategies and all the things. So what does like betting on yourself look like for you? Like what does showing up for yourself look like for you in 2025, physically and spiritually? Like how does that look like in different areas of your life?
Spiritually, for me, is betting on myself is what I pour into my mind. I'm going to always listen to sermons, motivational speeches. Like, I'm going to build myself what I feel like I give to people. If I want to be a motivational speaker one day, if I want to be a good coach, then I need to find good coaches. So I need to find things that I like and I can relate to. So, so that's one thing spiritually is that I have to always pour into myself just to stay sane. Just kind of have clarity of what to do. Physically, you have to have self care days. That's a non-negotiable. I do good fitting with journaling. Like, been tap into this space until this year. So I do like to challenge my, and I also feel like it helps with just everything, like your comprehension, your retaining information. It just helps all around of like you finding who you want to be, what person you want to be for your kids, yourself. Like it helps in all aspects. I want to start working out. I want to get in that gym, and just kind of like just have that self care for myself too. Of just like, look, I want to have the flat tummies and all these other things, just for me, not for anybody else, just for me. And physically, just also being present. Because one thing that we shared when we talked in a moment was just like sitting in a journey, and like not being so quick to just get to the next chapter or the next phase, but just actually sitting in and appreciating this because we know life moves so fast. So kind of taking in to see like how I'm healing through this space and this chapter, and I want to become this person, or I'm becoming, this version of Nina. I want to make sure that I'm present of how I change through these seasons. So that's what betting on me, because I feel like at this mind frame and this stage of my life that I can do any and everything. And I'm like, well, I need to build myself up, because if I want to go build this, how much time to build it? So I do have to pour into myself to do it. I still have to have knowledge there. So that's where I'm at when betting on myself. It's just like I feel like it's nothing is impossible, at this point in my life.
No, I love
what is it for you, friend?
I love that. I think for me it's really on that consistency. It did not hit me until me and you had that conversation, to where I was like, yo, I really need to be more consistent, like for real, for real. Like I think I underestimated how much I wasn't being consistent on my end with really, and that's really with just I think sharing my gift and sharing what I do with people, for sure. Um, One of the things that I was thinking about when it came to like showing up for myself consistently was like, oh, that means I'm always choosing me That means I'm always unapologetically being myself. I'm going to always choose my purpose rather than, kind of taking a step back and being fearful of not being accepted. I think that was like a big part that I really fought through and had to heal through a lot of that this year. So I feel like next year I'm like that.
And then I guess let me ask you that too. You said not being accepted by who?
Unfortunately, I think by even strangers, by even the world. I think when I made the transition of realizing I had a gift as an ancestral medium and being someone who was super duper into Christianity and changing my relationship with what that looked like and deciding like I'm a spiritual person. I'm going to honor my ancestors. I'm going to honor my spirit guides. Also just knowing what I know to be true for me in my life and the way I choose and being able to speak into that and to do that unapologetically without the fear of people being like, well, what's wrong with her? And what's she doing now? And da 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 and her kids and all this. That was a lot of my worries. Like if I'm just being honest, it was a lot of my worries. Um
Mm-hmm.
and
But you know,
right,
none of them people
exactly.
matter.
Right. None of them people matter. Exactly. And so the more the more I stay consistent with choosing myself and sharing my gift, believing in my gift, and the more I stay consistent with my own inner work, the more, like you said, the more I was just like, them people don't matter. Like, this is my gift. This is what I know that I'm here to do. Because even when I try to walk away from it, I can't. I feel incomplete when I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So I know that this is what I was a large part of what I was sent here to do. You know.
I'm so proud of you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you.
Because that's always a hard thing, you know. And I feel like this is this is why this podcast is important because you're going to speak to different women in different transitional periods of their life, you know, and whatever that looks like, none of those people matter. It just matters about what you're called to do, what you feel like your purpose is, and you stand on it, you know. So once we can get past that whole part of none of those people matter, we'll be so much so much far off, or like further on in life once we stop worrying about those things.
Sorry, girl, the boys walked in. But yes. Yes, that's my goal. My goal is that this podcast really just speak to people who are on their journey, finding themselves where I found myself. And for me, it was, I couldn't go sit up on a mountain and, have a spiritual awakening. It was happening while life was still happening.
Yeah.
So I was learning all of these tools while still having to raise my kids, while still having to build my business, make my business look different and more in alignment and authentic, right, to who I am and all of these things. So I'm excited and I'm very grateful to be able to just share what I've learned and to share what I'm learning as I learn it, with everyone, what's working for me. And my prayer is
Mm-hmm.
that it resonates with people who need to hear it and that it finds who needs to hear it. I'm grateful to have amazing friends like you and other guests that I've had on the podcast to just share. It makes me even more grateful that I have amazing people in my life. Um, and I want people to hear y'all stories too, because y'all influence the way I live my life as well, and how I feel supported and how I feel loved. And y'all are a part of the ways that I nourish and nurture myself too. So appreciate you, bud.
Yeah, and I mean, I look, we sisters. We people don't understand how long we've been knowing each other. Because at the same time, it's like you know, sometimes when I'm calling you, you may think that like we about to chop it up and I'm giving information to you, and I'm like, nah, I need you to talk me through this, like. Our conversations
Yes.
be relating and hitting on both ends of the spectrum of like, nah, I really needed to talk about this to make sure am I doing this right? And I'm supposed to be taking a
Right.
journey. Not yes, no, maybe so. You know, you be having so many thoughts, especially as an entrepreneur. You have so many thoughts and feelings and emotions about things, and you're just like, okay, I want to make sure I'm making these decisions. That's the right business decision, a right family decision, and you can't separate the two all the time. You know, it's just like this is business and this is personal, but then my emotions are still crossed in the middle of both of them. You know, so having friends that you can talk about life and business and it be more relatable is important. So you can really feel like, all right, God, you were speaking through her for me to catch it, and
Exactly,
I appreciate
exactly.
it.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And for
Because we want the
I
signs,
forgot.
but we want that sign to be like a big red.
Okay, and for people who don't, Nina and I have been friends for easily over 20 years. So we've yeah, so we've been there for each other and with each other through a lot of our own personal evolutions, all the way down. We both have twins, like all the things. So yes, so she is a friend that I truly, truly cherish, and I'm grateful for coming on the podcast and sharing all of your tools and all of your insights and just your motivation. Like when we talk, I'll be like, yeah, yeah, we going to get it. Let's go. Let's go. That's how I feel when we get off the phone.
It's accountability. It's accountability
Yeah.
for both of us, though. You know, because it's like if I have that friend that wants it just as bad as I do, then that means we gonna win together. And our dreams get bigger and bigger. We went from just being like we gonna get some mimosas to like now we gonna be on that
Be like, yeah, I'm going to send a jet
yacht
for you.
with the mimosas. Yeah. Just have your bags packed.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh,
So
man. Well,
funny,
thank you so
but we need
much
that because we
for
feel.
joining, stopping by, checking in. I always like to say, like, we checking in. So for checking in, I'm super duper beyond grateful for you. Um, y'all make sure I'm gonna put the links because Nina does coaching. Okay, she got ebooks. My girl got all the things. You understand? So make sure that you stay connected to and with her. All right, I'm gonna put all her stuff in the show notes. Thank you again for listening and checking in with the Healing Lifestyle podcast. All right, stay connected. If you're interested in any ancestral readings or private sessions, I'll also put the link below to my stuff in the show notes. So keep healing, keep growing, and we will check in with y'all next time.